It's time now for the political analysis of Fromm and Fuller. Al Fromm, former political advisor to President Bill Clinton, and Craig Fuller, former political advisor to both Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. Good morning, all. Al, it's been probably one of the most historic weeks in American politics. Last Sunday, Joe Biden decided to drop out of the race for 2024. And I just want to segment this into different parts, but let's talk about that decision and the kind of historic consequences it brings to this race.
Well, first of all, I think it was a good decision. It was a hard decision, very hard for any ambitious politician, and Joe Biden has wanted to be president since he was first elected to the Senate, probably long before that, and he was one of the youngest people ever elected to the Senate at the age of 29. So it was a very hard decision, but it was also the right decision. I thought his speech last night was very good, about as good as he can do. And the point he made that he valued democracy over personal ambition, got away from the I alone can do it kick, I think was really good and important. I think he ought to finish his term. There's a different amount of vigor that's needed to run a campaign when you're behind. And like Harry Truman, you got to give him hell. Carrying out his duties as president, which I think he is perfectly capable of doing for the next 6 months. The thing that I thought that struck me is yesterday CNN did a poll, and 90% of Democrats said he made the right decision. So you got to think that really, he feels that. I mean, basically it says 90% of Democrats didn't want him to be their candidate. So in light of all that, I think it's really pretty incredible what he did. And then going on national television last night, to make the broader point about democracy. I think he's done just fine. I suspect he will have some role, but a probably pretty limited role in the campaign.
Greg, what's your thought?
I thought President Biden stepped away with, in a graceful and a significant way. I agree with what Al said. I think clearly the time had come, and he could see that. The one thing I would add just briefly that I haven't heard discussed, but I really believe, is that he actually did his party a favor by waiting so long. That sounds odd, but had he done this in March, as Lyndon Johnson did so many years ago, or had he given that inaugural speech and then, a few weeks later stepped away, there would have been this flurry of activity. And both parties are hard to organize today, but there would have been a flurry of activity among Democrats. And if he'd done it even a month earlier, it would be very hard to consolidate the party around a single candidate. I know we're going to talk about Kamala Harris, but I actually think by waiting as he did, he is going to be heralded everywhere he goes at Democratic events. He certainly will be celebrated at the convention, and probably will continue to help Kamala Harris. And certainly he and she are wedded to how they're doing with the economy, and those numbers today look pretty good. So I think, and it has infused the political process with energy, something that was definitely needed.
Yeah, Al, it was incredible how quickly Democrats fell in line. I've never seen such a disciplined group of politicians just line up in support of Harris. Wasn't that surprising to you?
It was maybe a little bit surprising, but not really. I mean, Craig actually made a great point about the timing. The one thing this did, because of the way Democrats coalesced around Harris right away, the one thing it did is that she didn't have to seek the nomination. And for Democrats, and for particularly, for Democrats in particular, but even for the Republicans, even though not quite so much, because with Trump, you have this double down MAGA strategy, and that never varies. But for Democrats, as Craig knows better than anybody else, what a Democrat says seeking the nomination can be hung around his or her neck in a general, because what George H.W. Bush did to Dukakis was a classic case in that. And she didn't have to go through that. And so now she has the advantage of being able to go after the vote she needs to get without having to worry, without having to have already positioned herself in a way that it would be harder for her to do that. You know, just very quickly on this race, she's been off to an incredible start. You know, Craig mentioned the enthusiasm. I think her first speeches on the stump show she's going to be strong on the stump, which Biden just couldn't be anymore. And that will help a lot. But I go back to what we talked about last week. The fundamentals are really pretty interesting because they haven't changed. Trump first rally last night, same old Trump, decided he wasn't going to be nice, made that explicit, and then got nasty. I think we've seen in the last week that what we talked about last week about Vance being a sort of a mini Trump, and meaning a double down on the MAGA vote is true, and that was probably much more aimed at Biden, really, in a sense, than Harris. And the third thing, that their strategy was so Biden dependent because they're really going after Biden as an old guy. But the Vance thing, double down on the MAGA vote, trying to find more MAGA votes in the blue wall states, because the one strength Biden had over probably other Democratic candidates, certainly in 2020, was he did a little bit better among working class whites in those blue wall states. So, I mean, look, the difference is Harris has a chance. The race is still, Trump is still ahead, but it's closer. The early polling, which you can't put too much stock in, but shows that we're getting closer in the swing states. And to me, Harris needs to do three things to take advantage of that. And the first goes to what Craig's point. I mean, she needs to reach out beyond the Democratic coalition. She can't play identity politics. The Republicans and Trump with the racist and misogynist barbs will make it very clear to all the Democratic base that Harris is a black woman, and she's not going to have to go after that part of the vote. She can reach out, spend a lot, change her schedule, start going more to working class places in the blue wall states, so that's the first thing. She needs to go after the vote she needs to have to win. She doesn't, unlike Biden, who had no enthusiasm in the base, she doesn't have to secure the base. The second thing, she needs a message that makes her bigger than smaller. You know, Trump's going to try to define her as a radical liberal, black politician. She needs a message that's a sense of national purpose. I think her opportunity message is good. I'd like to see her put a little responsibility theme into it. But basically, a bigger message rather than a smaller one. And the third thing that she can do that Biden just had no ability to do now is she can prosecute Trump, and she's off to a good start on that. She knows how to handle him. With all that, I think she can get very close. I think this reestablishes the third-party threat in the sense that these swing states are going to be very close, and even a few votes to a third party could flip it. But the main takeaway I get from where we are now is Harris can win this race. I think Biden had no chance. Harris can win it, but it will require a degree of discipline that is often hard for presidential nominees to exercise.
You know, I sent you both a New York Times profile of Harris from a year ago that suggested that she was still kind of learning the role of a national leader. Do you feel like we're seeing a new Harris?
You know, there's very few ways that are better to prepare to run for president than to serve as vice president. Simply because you get used to the magnitude of the job. She's been out around the country, literally around the world, talking about the Biden-Harris policies, so she's very familiar with the issues. I think what we're seeing is a person who's evolving. I think we're seeing somebody who's, 4 years more mature by age, but many more than that in terms of her own political sophistication. I watch her on these speeches she's giving now with, she has all of the joy and the enthusiasm, but she has a seriousness to her. And some might even say presidential quality to her. And I think that comes from this job. And for her, this provides this whole mantle of being vice president, provides opportunities that, I'm sorry, not even Trump won. His airplane can do what one of those beautiful Air Force jets does, Air Force Two does when it touches down and lands. So there's just more gravitas there, I guess, which I think serves her very well.
Al, the vice presidential selection is another critical test for Vice President Harris. There are quite a few contenders. This is the fun part, is the guessing game. But do you have a sense or even a preference on who that person should be, and what are the political calculations on that?
Before I get to that, Craig's point about her maturation is, I think, really important. What I sensed was a real confidence, a confident candidate, and a confident and coherent candidate. Yeah. And you contrast that with Trump, who was absolutely incoherent, and what Biden was at the end of his, in the debate, and as people have come to believe, he was on the trail. That could prove to be a great contrast for her and a great opportunity. We are blessed in the Democratic Party. With an incredible next generation of governors. One of them will be the nominee. As I understand it, she's considering Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, her friend Roy Cooper in North Carolina, maybe Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, J.B. Pritzker in Illinois, and then Senator and Andy Beshear in Kentucky, and then maybe, as well, she's considering Mark Kelly, the astronaut senator from Arizona. I believe she'll pick somebody from a swing state. As I look at it, if I were looking at it, assuming all the vetting worked out, I'd probably go for Josh Shapiro. Pennsylvania is a must state, and it's one we can win. He is a terrific governor. Also, Wes Moore, I guess, might be on that list. But he's like Wes Moore here. He's very popular in Pennsylvania. And he did something that I think probably cemented his ability to, usually vice presidential candidates can't help even very much in their own state. But I think he did something in his first year that would probably make him very hard to, that would probably add a couple of points to him if he's on the ticket in Pennsylvania. And that was when I-95 collapsed. He put it back in 12 days. He showed that he could make government work. He's also his first initiative as governor was to eliminate the requirement of a college degree for most government jobs in Pennsylvania. And that, I think, is something that talks directly to the working class voters that we have to do better with. We're not going to win them, certainly not going to win white working class voters, but you keep that down to a 15-point loss instead of a 35-point loss, and you're in the White House. So he would probably be my first choice. I think Mark Kelly has the best resume, but I think Shapiro is probably a little more dynamic on the campaign trail.
Craig, you have the last word and the last guest this week.
Well, I'll make the guest up front. I also think Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, is, to me, the strongest choice. But I want to put it in the context, and Al knows this so well. At this stage, both campaigns have to think a lot about momentum. And you don't get that many opportunities to be absolutely certain that you can capture and advance your momentum. One of the things around which that happens is the selection of a vice president. So again, President Biden did his party a real favor. He created huge momentum around Kamala Harris and the consolidation of her nomination to be president. Within 2 weeks, we're hearing, she will indicate who her choice is to be vice president. That will create a lot of momentum. If it's Josh Shapiro, it creates it in one of these key swing states, Pennsylvania. I agree with Al. Recent history tells us that vice presidents don't necessarily provide a huge advantage in their own state, but this governor is a little different. First of all, he's run and won statewide as Attorney General. He's run and won statewide as governor. So not only has he shown his ability to be a good vote getter in Pennsylvania, he brings the ability, I think, to reduce the time and the spending that Kamala Harris would have to devote herself to if he was not the vice presidential nominee, and that's huge. Time and money is huge. Keeping in this sort of discussion of momentum, she makes that choice, and then very short time after that, they're at the convention. And now you've got Biden, who will be heralded as a hero, probably on Monday night. You have the choice of vice president, and you have Kamala Harris, and you come out of that convention and roll right into the September-October timeframe. So to me, the Democrats have much more momentum. Honestly, Donald Trump is an embarrassment, as far as I'm concerned, to Republicans. And there's almost nothing new. In fact, there's virtually nothing new that he wants to share with us. He said he was going to have a different style in his speech at his convention. It lasted 15 minutes, and it went away. You're hearing more and more second guessing about his choice of vice president. He's not loyal to anybody. So I don't see how they capture much momentum, because he says nothing new. It's going to be a diatribe every day from the podium from which he speaks. If there's any drama, it's going to be, does he think, about making a change in his vice president? That would be almost, to me, unthinkable, but it's being speculated about. So I think the momentum is with Kamala Harris and her choice of vice president. Like I say, I think Josh Shapiro, we'll see. She does have some, as Al says, she's got some strong governors, and she's got a very strong astronaut senator, and I don't know, maybe it does take a rocket scientist to be a good vice president. Who knows? Anyway, we'll see. Time will tell.
We have to leave it there. Al Fromm, Craig Fuller, thank you so much indeed. We will see you next week.